Hello and welcome to today's session of the course Let's Excel Together. In our previous sessions, we've covered entry, basics of entry, basics of formatting, and then lastly, we just stepped into formulas and functions. And I'll advise you to read up, to try to get yourself abreast with what we've done to get to this point, what we have, what we've displayed here. So we looked at the basis of formulas, right? Performing basic arithmetic functions. We saw how we could add, we could subtract, we could perform multiplication actions, division actions. These were like things that we covered. Now, in today's session, we're going to be taking it a step further. We're going to be performing more actions or more functions, and I'll be kicking off with the next thing from the basic arithmetic functions that we carry out. And first function I would like to introduce, as we step in, from that basic arithmetic function category to statistical functions, is the sum function. So the sum, like you would already know, involves action of summing, adding values, right? Numerical values, adding numerical values, together. So the result of an addition is what we call sum, where we have division, as the case may be. So to perform a sum function in the Microsoft Excel application, every function or formula precedes, that's a common rule, that it must begin with an equal to symbol, right? You recall how we arrived at our profit. We did equal to this minus this. So equal to symbol. And then in the case of a function, the name of the function. Equal to symbol, the name of the function. Now, so I'm going to type my equal to, and then the sum function s u. Now you can see I mainly like hit down s. We have various functions, various functions. We can't cover them all. Yeah, like I said earlier, there are some important ones to get at your fingertips, and from the learning curve, you will be able to know when to apply which function, based on the scenario that you're presented with, which function you would figure is the best fit to address that particular scenario. So in the case of showing you the sum function here, s, and you type u, and you can see other functions, but here we're going for sum, sum. And you see the description, it adds all the numbers in a range of cells. Now we're familiar with what, when it says a range of cells, we know what that entails. Okay. Now next is to press, to type, to close this in a bracket, right? Some persons, depending on the space, instead of brackets, may use the word parentheses. They mean the same thing. Okay. So you could hold down the shift key depending on the machine you're using. Hold down the shift key, and on my key it's number 9, where I have 9, based on my keyboard layout, and then the brackets. So I open the bracket. Now you can see this on the screen. Now this is to explain it, is that there are different functions, and different functions have different behaviors. Now what I mean by behaviors is, you have the equal to symbol, which you must type. We've already established that it's a must. You must type the equal to symbol. The next, you must type the name of the function. After the name of the function, you have to open your bracket, so either the parentheses or the brackets. Next to the bracket, or what is contained in the bracket, is the argument or the body of the function. So different functions have different behaviors, or you could say different arguments that are expected. In a sum function, which essentially is adding a range of cells or numbers that have been provided. So you can see that you have number one, like an argument. It's just giving you a label, like a placeholder. All right. So if I were to say one, you know, now the separator here is a comma. Now, if on your computer, on your device, your separator is not a comma, it's from your computer settings. All right. You just need to check via the file option, to see separators. So for some computers, it would be a semicolon or a colon or some other symbol that has been specified. So if it's not a comma for you, do not panic, right? Just quietly, or carefully move through the file area here, right? And you just let me know, and I will give you a guide if the comma is not your separator. But in most scenarios, the comma is a separator, like it is displayed here. So remember, we're doing 1 plus 1. So I'm just going to say 1 and I'm going to add 10, right? Separated by a comma. And I'm going to close the bracket, okay? Close the parenthesis. I hit enter. And now we can see the result of that action. The result of the action. If we click on the cell, we can see the function or the formula of that in the formula bar. So we're saying it is sum 1 and then 10. Now, if we were to take it a step further, because we're not just typing arbitrary figures to see to use it in a cell, to reference a cell. Okay, so we have 110, and I want it to add the value in cell J2. I just simply click on cell J2. And what's the value in cell J2? 217.41. All right, 217.41. If I should hit enter, we would have 11 plus 217.41, and that should be giving us 228.41. Okay, that's correct. So you see that the sum function allows you to apply it to numbers or range or cells. Now here we just used a single cell. How about if we were to extend it beyond a single cell? To extend it beyond a single cell and to say, rather than from J2, well, let's extend it to from J2 to J5. Now you recall how to specify a range in a form function like this. We said with the starting cell, right, and then we'll put a colon and then the next cell. So a colon and then the next cell. So now we now have a range, and you can see that the range is even highlighted because we are currently at this point at the formula bar, and we hit enter. And if we were to perform a like physical count of that J2 to J11, right? J2 to J11, the value you add 11 to it, it would give you the same value, that we have returned here. So that's what the sum function, in a nutshell, it's about. Now, there are different instances where you could say you need to use the sum function. One of such instances, I'm just going to take this off here, is let's perform a sum to get what is the total profit we can get, the total sales we can get. So I'll say sum, right? Now, if you don't want to type that the open bracket, you could just use the tab key on your keyboard. It's a shortcut. I use it a lot, or you could double click on this function since it's what you want. So I'm just going to use the tab key. I use it a lot. And now I want to get the total number of sales. So I'm going to click. I can click on this, clicking it down. My finger is still pressed down on the mouse, and drag all the way down. You know, I drag all the way down till the end of the range. So that's J2 to J45. No, that's J44. And I close it, right? I was simply going to close it. I hit enter. We're going to scroll up so we can see that. And we'll see that this is a summation, the total of my sales value here. From you have this data set now, you can perform, individual calculations to do the additions, to see if that value is same. All right, so I'll call this, say, my total sales. Okay, total sales. Now, the next function I'd like us to look at is average function. The average function. That's something that we also use, while speaking, to say, oh, we have this sales, we have this profit, over region, over this product, given the time specified. What's the average sales? What's the average profit? Perhaps you're trying to plan. Statistics helps with that. Storing and organizing the data. So, what's the average sales? What's the average profit? We're going to perform the average function on profit. Again, the rule is to type the equal to symbol, and then we start typing the name of the function. And in this case, it's average. Okay, so I'm saying average here. I'm going to double click this time. Okay, you could double click, you could type it out yourself, right? You could hit the tab key on your keyboard, to have it displayed. And luckily, or would I say coincidentally, the average function operates similar to the sum function, where the name of the function and then the arguments of the functions is just expecting you to just provide the details. All right, so just put in the numbers, if it's a number or series of numbers, just put in series of number. If we were to say 5, 8, 7, you know and we close this and hit enter. Now, from how we know basic arithmetic average to be is that it's going to sum all of this and then divide by the count, right? So that's going to be 5 plus 8, that's 13, 13 plus 7, 20, and then it's 3 divided by 3. So we're expecting um, a value that would have some decimal points in it. So if I hit enter, you can see, because that's 20 divided by 3 rather, which is 6. Recall, I'll be 6 times 3, 18, and those the remainder figures. If you were to just arbitrarily say 20 divided by 3, I will see the same value returned. Okay, so you see this for average, but in practical scenarios, you want to apply average, to a range, a range. So in this case here, the profit, the range profit. So I'm just going to drag down, all right, closes, hit enter, right, and scroll up, and I can see that, oh, so this is the average profit. All right, this is the average profit. I like you to just test yourself on this. Get do perform a sum operation for total cost, perform an average operation as well to see what's the average cost price. All right, so we've seen that, oh, this is the average profit. Get the total cost in terms of summing all of this down, get the average of these as well. Okay, and think of other statistical functions that you want to play around with. Statistical functions you want to play around with. I wrote some here. I have median, I have mode, there's standard deviation, there's variance, and it's similar. But what happens when we go to median? Let's see if median is any different. So if I say equal to and I start typing median, returns the median or the number in it. So in say similar expression, so in this case here, it's expecting you to provide it with a list, right? So it's either you're providing a list of numbers or you're providing a range of cells, okay? And this same action as you've learned, with you've seen me perform with the sum function, with the average function. I like you to perform similar activities, for median. Take a median, on what you want to do with regard to cost, sales, profit. It's something that comes in handy when you're performing analysis, on the data sets that you provided. Median, mode, standard deviation, variance are things that come in handy. And Excel has all of these, for you. There's mode, all right? Now, MOD is different from mode, okay? Mode. Now, observe that you have three different um, function names for the mode. Let me start with the one at the bottom, that has this kind of like a warning symbol. That is trying to let you know that it has most likely been depreciated. Now, if I should just hover to it, say this function is available for compatibility with Excel 2007 version and earlier. All right, so this is a function that was created at the early instance of the Microsoft Excel application, but over time, as things have evolved, you know there are functions, upgrades. Let me use that word, upgrades to these functions, to see how we can achieve better results, optimized results. So you may not want to use this mode. You can still use it. It doesn't mean that it's not relevant. It's still very relevant. You can use the mode, which is still to return the most frequently occurring or repetitive value in an array or range of data, which is what mode, as we're taught, I was taught in school, helps you to identify that value that has the highest frequency in your data sets, or in this case in your range. Okay, and if I were to hit the tab key again, the argument is for me to provide that my range of cells, or the numbers that I feel I want to compare. So let's just type in arbitrary numbers and say 1, 2, 3. I'm going to use 1 and 1 again, and I'm going to use 2. Already we can see that 1 appears the most, and when I hit enter key, I'm seeing that 1 appears the most. Okay, so these are like basic statistical functions, that you could apply to your data set depending on your need. Okay, you want to perform standard deviation variance. We're going to go look into that a bit more when we're performing analysis. Now, another function I would like us to look at, on the basis of statistical functions, is the count function. The count function, a very, very important function, the count function. So let's take this off here now. Count. So whatever function I say, you can just type along with me, while you're listening. So count. It says it counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. Okay. Now to test this, we're going to apply the count function to two columns. Okay. So I'm going to hit enter. Here now, we're specifying the value, right? The value being the range of cells. I'm going to just use column D, which is for item, right? And I'm going to say D2, D2, the column there, to D40, was that 44? Close that. Yeah. Before we look at that, I just want to, yeah, 44. So the result, it shows 0. Okay, it shows 0. Now I'm going to perform replicate that same action, for the adjacent column, and that's for column E, the column that has units. You can see the formula and the formula bar E2 to E44, and there I have 43. So now what happened? You know, one way of understanding, or like say one of the best ways of understanding is, without explaining it in too much detail, it's to look at the description of the count function. It says counts the number of cells in a range that contain numbers. Okay, so in this case, column D, which is the item, it doesn't contain number. Remember when we're looking at data types, while we're talking about entry and formatting, please try to refer back to those videos if you haven't watched them. Well, we looked at different data types. We said there are numbers, and even numbers have types, based on their expressions. And so we mentioned something about text. I said, oh, a literal text. Now this is one of the areas where it's coming in handy. Okay, now the count function is counting cells that have numbers in them. So it scanned through the column D, which is the item, but there were no numbers. A pencil, a binder, these are text entries, all right? They're just alphabets, text entries without any numbers. However, when the same function, was applied to column E, the unit, which had numbers it had numbers in it. It counted 43 records. 43 records. If we were to take a physical count of this, to start going down 1, 2, 3, the data set here is same what you have there. You would see that it is 43. You have 43 cells in this column that contain numbers. Now that's what the count function helps you achieve. All right, it counts cells that have numbers in it. Okay, cells that have numbers in it. Now, there are some variants or flip to the count function where you just don't want to count for numbers. You want to count for blanks. All right. You want to count to see that a cell is not, doesn't have a blank entry. So let's start with count A. Right. What does it say? It counts the number of cells in a range that are not empty. Now, if I were to apply this to the same column D2 to column D44, now I have a value return, because in this case it's not counting for numbers, it's just checking to see if within this range that you specified, do they have entries, do they have values in them. If it's blank, if there's an empty one, I'm just going to take one off, so you can pay take closer look at this here, right? So I'm just going to delete one entry here. You see that the value automatically, it changed to 42. Okay, I'm going to undo that, and it comes back to 43. Now, while I was typing the count, there was count A, there was count black, play around with this. I want you to test yourself, to see what happens when you use the count black function, and share with me your experience. If you're having a hard time, we can work that out. If you got it right, and you're satisfied with that, share with me. Your response would also encourage some other person that's saying that, and I'll be expecting to see your feedback. Okay, so that's for statistical functions. Okay, statistical functions in a nutshell. Statistical functions. The next category of functions I would like us to delve into is conditional functions, the conditional functions. Okay, and we'll be going into that in the next model. So take your time, familiarize yourself with what you've learned so far, test yourself. Wherever you're experiencing issues, share the comment section. I would love to hear your thoughts. And if you're experiencing any peculiar challenge, we can work that out as well. Thank you again for watching. Bye for now.